الشيطان الرجيم Bismillahir, Rahmanir, Rahim. Alhamdulillah wahda wassalatu wassalamu ala man la nabiyya ba'da. Ma ba'd. A couple of weeks ago, or 2 Fridays ago, I did the khutbah in reference to political differencing surrounding the issues of the current political atmosphere, current elections. But one of the points that I mentioned was that our allegiance should only be to Allah and His Messenger, alayhi salatu wassalam, to the Muslimin, and that we should not give our blind allegiances to any politician or any political party. So last night, I was sent the video of the rally, of the Trump rally in Michigan. And Donald Trump had a meeting with, apparently had a meeting with some of the imams from the Detroit, Dearborn area. And they came to the rally to show support and endorse the Donald Trump presidency. And as I watched, it's like 3 or 4 minutes, not long, it made me want to come to the community to re-emphasize the fact or the point that we should never give our allegiance or a blind endorsement, or give, maybe I don't call it a blind endorsement, even an endorsement, public endorsement, where I come out and I say, I support so-and-so, and so should you. You support candidate XYZ. Dr. Omar in the back, hey, you support candidate XYZ. Rahim, hey, you go support XYZ, okay? Right? We should never do that. Now, again, this is not a discussion on the validity or the permissibility of civic engagement. This is not a discussion about the validity or the permissibility of voting. We're not going to talk about that, at least not right now, inshallah. Maybe we'll wait till after the elections are over and we can have a real conversation when everybody's emotions are now calmed down. But the problem with these types of these types of endorsements is we can't ever trust politicians that come and live up to the promises that they make. That's the first issue. The second issue, there are lots of issues, lots and lots of issues that when a person is elected into office, in the 2 years or the 4 years in that term, there are so many things that come up that they vote for, that they push through, that if you vote, and then you've encouraged others to vote for this person, then you have now been directly responsible for whatever policies or procedures that come out of that. And whether we want to understand this or not, or turn a blind eye to this or not, we do have to look beyond, one issue or two issues. So, for example, foreign policy is not the only thing that the president is going to be addressing during his term. There's domestic policy, there's foreign policy, and then foreign policy is not limited to Philistine, right? Foreign policy is very broad, right? It's very, very broad. And so what happens now, you come and you say, oh, Donald Trump said he's going to bring peace. Or Kamala Harris said she's going to make peace. So we need to vote for so-and-so. Okay, so let's say there's some peace that happens in the Ukraine, or some peace that happens one or two other places, but then they bomb all the Muslims in Nigeria, right? And they start bombing the Muslims in Yemen. Something that you may not have even been thinking about. You may not have even considered. But happens because of your endorsement. Once again, don't ever say, well, Abdullah Smith is saying that we shouldn't be engaging civically. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that whatever level of civic engagement that you're engaging on, for whatever reasons that you believe are important, then let them be that important to you. For you and your family, let that be important for you and your family. But to stand publicly and to call others, and even worse than that, one of the things I also talked about, which sometimes it even happens, which is worse than that, is the arguing that ensues after that, which could lead to name calling, which even leads to accusing people in their Islam. Now, I'll just say it very bluntly and so that people can know, in case people are wondering, I don't vote. No, I don't vote. I never have. Allah knows best if there's a reason for me to vote. Maybe I will. I won't say what happens in the future. But because of some of the horrible political issues that I've seen domestically and internationally, from all sides, from all these candidates, from the time I was born, or from the time I can remember. I think President Reagan may be really like the first president I can remember. I've been seeing all kinds of horrible things happening here in the United States and overseas. So I'm sorry, people can be mad at me if they like. I don't vote, but I do have an opinion. I have lots of opinions on public policy. I have lots of opinions on lots of things that happen. And I'm also watching in the chat rooms, WhatsApp groups, on Facebook, the discussions on Twitter happening amongst the Muslims. Some of the discussions that happen amongst the Muslims here in Piscataway, where there's actually people who have risen up to the level of becoming aggressive with others simply because they support the Democratic Party, or another group supports the Green Party. Or what about these imams who came out and said, I support Trump? What do you think? I was invited to that the Imam who actually delivered the speech for the Muslims at that Trump rally called me earlier in the week and invited me to join them. Now, as I said, I don't really like to get involved in politics on that level. I refused, alhamdulillah. But I was thinking, I thought when I was watching the video and imagining myself standing there, or maybe even worse, if I would have been pushed into a situation where I was the one, who was delivering that speech yesterday, what would people have said? What would people have said? Get him out of here. How dare he, the Imam of MCMC, says he supports Trump. There would have been a lot of accusations for a lot, and people would have never even asked me why. Wouldn't have been an open dialogue. It would not have been conversation. Just, he supports Muslim man. He supports this. He supports this. Just making a lot of assumptions. And this is part of the problem when you get so engaged in the political process here in the United States, which is why I tend to stay away. Again, I'm not blaming anyone here who gets engaged. There's lots of evidences and arguments for that side. Again, I'm not trying to convince anyone. My purpose here of this morning is to make sure that we as a community are not falling apart because of anybody's political position. If they choose to vote for Jill Stein, or if they choose to vote, firstly, if they choose to vote, that's the first issue that people divide over. And then who are they voting for? Are they voting for the Republicans? Are they voting for the Democrats? Are they voting for the Labour Party or the Green Party, whatever these parties are? Are they voting for Palone? Right, you see the signs out in the yards now? The green signs for Palone. Are they voting for Mayor Waller? Mayor Waller stands with Palone. So now if I vote for Mayor Waller, and Mayor Waller has his hands, he's holding hands with Palone. Palone supports the Zionists. So then now, does that mean now that I now am supporting Zionism? So I'm supporting the kuffar over the Muslimin. Like this tasalsul, you can take it in all kinds of directions. And I mentioned in the khutbah 2 weeks ago that Uthman radiallahu anhu was murdered. He was assassinated. Uthman was assassinated. And his cousin was Muawiyah radiallahu ta'ala. They were both from Bani Umayyah. And Allah Ta'ala said, وَمَنْ قُتِلَ مَظْلُومًا فَقَدْ جَعَلْنَا لِوَلِيِّهِ سُلْطَانًا. And whoever has been killed oppressively, then we have made for his wali, his relative, or his relatives, an authority, given them an authority, meaning they get to make the decision. The one who kills this one, then the family of the killed gets to make the decision as to what happens. And so Ali radiallahu anhu, when he took over, when Ali radiallahu anhu, when he took over after the assassination of Uthman, Muawiyah's position was, that's my cousin, we need to deal with these guys, because they didn't run and hide. I mean, the people who killed Uthman were right there, walking around and praying in the masjid. They knew who they were. Ali said, okay, we're going to deal with them, but we need to get things under control. Muawiyah said, no, we need to take care of this right now. That's my cousin. He was killed unjustly. His murderers are right there. There's no way that we should just be letting them walk in and out of the masjid and we don't deal with them. Ali said, yes, I agree with you, but there's chaos in the ummah, there's instability. Let me get a handle on things first, so that when I do deal with them, it doesn't create a bigger mess, doesn't create a bigger problem. Muawiyah said no now. Ali said let's wait. And so Muawiyah didn't back down, and Ali didn't back down, and then there was conflict. There was conflict. Now, both sides, the side of Muawiyah radiallahu ta'ala anhu, the side of Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu, they weren't really differing on the major points. They weren't differing on whether or not these people should be dealt with. That wasn't the issue. The issue was not should they be dealt with. It was when should they be dealt with. Muawiyah wanted now, which he had a right to. Ali said, let's wait a little bit, which I understand. Looking at historical context, I see clearly his position. So where did they differ? They differed on the strategy on how to move forward from that point. That's where they differed. And because of that differencing and the emotional attachments to these positions, it led to fighting, and some people died. There were some of the Sahaba who died in this conflict. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with all of them. Now, the reason why I mentioned that is because we see how political differencing and the emotions that are connected to these issues or these positions, how they can lead to internal conflict amongst the Muslims. And we want to remove as many of these conflicts as possible so that we're not fighting internally. Because right now we can't afford to be differing with one another at the level that we're now against one another and pointing at one another and calling each other names and accusing one another of backstabbing the Muslims or accusing one another of supporting the kuffar over the Muslimin or any of these types of accusations. We can't afford that. And so I respect everybody's right here to have a position. If Dr. Shaheen has a position, right? Dr. Mayman may have a position. You have a position, right? You have a, I feel this, okay. I'm not going to debate with you as to why you have the position that you have, and I respect that. Whether I agree or whether I disagree, it's a different conversation. But I do respect your right as an individual, as my Muslim brother, to hold the position that you hold. And I'm not going to allow that, the fact that I disagree with your outlook and your final judgment, I'm not going to allow that to rise to a level to now where it's causing conflict between the two of us, to the point where me and you can't even sit down and have a conversation. We should never ever allow for these, especially these issues, because as I mentioned, Allah Ta'ala said, وَلَنْ تَرْضَى عَنْكَ الْيَهُودُ وَلَا النَّصَارَى حَتَّى تَتَّبِعَ مِلَّتَهُمْ. And the Jews and the Christians will never be pleased with you until you follow their way. So this is who we're arguing and fighting over. People who they themselves don't claim us. They don't claim us. And they don't take on our issues as their issues. They're not defenders of us and our issues. That's not who they are. They just want our votes. That's it. So let us not be fooled and tricked into going down this pathway of splitting and dividing the Muslims over people and groups and parties and political issues that they don't stand for us to begin with. So let us remain united. I apologize for taking a long time. And again, as I've always said, my office is always open for anyone who wants to have a dialogue and have a peaceful conversation about these issues. I'm always open to having peaceful and respectable dialogue. I do not mind if you disagree with me. That's perfectly fine. I believe in everybody's right to have their position. What I don't want to ever see is of splitting and dividing and fighting one another, being angry with each other, and not giving salams to one another, and accusing one another simply because, I choose not to vote. But Dr. Omar, he's voting for Kamala Harris. Dr. Omar, don't be mad at me, right? Don't be mad at me, because I'm not mad at you. You want to support the lady? Okay, no problem, right? So let us not, it's okay. It's all right, right? It's okay, let's calm down. Let's have a conversation. Matter of fact, let's get some halal coffee, right? The coffee where it's okay to buy, right? And let's sit down with some halal donuts, okay? Matter of fact, where's the brother Muhammad? Is Muhammad here? We can get him to make us some French toast and some halal bacon, right? And let's have a conversation, right? We go over to Dr. Moore's house, right? He can make us some gahwa, and let's have a conversation, right? Let's make it a good time at least. If we're going to do this, let's make it a good time for us. Make it a time of bonding, and let's make it ibadah, beneficial. Let's not make it a gathering of enmity and hatred, where we get up from the sitting, hating one another, speaking ill of one another. And again, I apologize for making this long, but I want us to be brothers. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us and guide us. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts us all on the straight path.